Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Okay, I talked to Yusuf today, and he was telling me that he had tried to make a video where he's like explaining kind of things about like liturgy or how Orthodox worship is like. If you've never been to a liturgical, hey sweets, I can't, hon, you're too heavy for my lap. Thank you. If you've never had that kind of worship service before, um, what some of the differences are and why they are that way. And one of the things in particular that he talked about is how the Psalms are used. So I'm just going to, I haven't watched his video yet because I didn't want his video to influence mine. So I'm going to go back after and watch this and maybe make another one if I need to or whatever. So just growing up, what I can tell you as a Jew, we're taught as a wife will on the weekend Sabbath chant the Psalms in total. And there are these like little books of Psalms, and it's like a form of a blessing and a meditation that you chant them, and you do them in order, and it's kind of like I would watch women who were completing that, and it would basically be like they would be chanting while they were doing other things, and so like they could have a conversation, they could pause right where they were in their prayer book, look at someone, answer a question, and make sure that, whatever situation was settled, and then open up the prayer book and be right back into that exact psalm. So it was a very focused kind of I don't want to call it a meditation, but it really is in a sort of a way. But it's a blessing to her whole family. I think I remember learning that. And so usually, because so much of Orthodox worship is an absolute reflection of the way that the temple worship was, chants, psalms are chanted in full. It's very rare that you'll find one that's like chopped up or taken out of order, or if it is, it's done for musical purposes, and somehow it still lets the entire message come across. So, and one of the reasons for that has to do with that, we don't like to cut and slice and dice Holy Word. It's to be taken in its whole context. So, it's part of like not proof texting, I guess. Okay. So if you're a person who grew up with some sort of a non-liturgical practice, there's still an order in which you do things, but it's also kind of like freely chosen. There's not necessarily any special order that you would do it in. Services that I've been to, they would have any manner of instruments. Things could be very, very soft, or things could be really loud, as like, Christian rock stuff that they'll do. And that the songs aren't, it may be one phrase or stanza from any holy writing or scripture or whatever can be used or even just vaguely referred to, but that it isn't common that you'd hear an entire verse of an actual piece of holy writing. So contrast that with a very specific way that you begin each time, and going through a very ordered direction towards all different kinds of prayers that are said, all of them stemming exactly from um, holy writings, Gospels. So there's kind of a, what's the word? I guess sort of like a, I want to call it a myth, or just kind of some sort of an impression that a lot of times people have. Hang on, let me see if I can turn off the CDs. Okay. Yeah, some sort of an impression that people have that if they're in some sort of a worship that's like that, that it's going to be very dry and very stuffy and very long and very difficult, and that it's, it's not dynamic, and it's stodgy, and that these are some of the reactions that I hear from people who just haven't ever had any kind of a liturgical background, or things that they've heard, because kids growing up aren't necessarily all that excited about being at church for whatever reason, right? I find it actually the opposite. There is so much going on that you can almost become overwhelmed. There's constant movement of sometimes people and items. There are no instruments, but all of the music is vocal, and the music moves the entire liturgy. While it's obviously the priest and I guess the deacon or the reader or whomever is else up there that's beginning the prayers or continuing them, there's a responsive interaction that goes on between the choir or the congregation and the choir and the priest. Sometimes there isn't a separate choir, but the congregation is itself the entire choir. So when you're participating in something like that, rather than listening to someone ordering you to sing hymn number 36, whatever, that's, sounds like I'd like to buy the world a Coke, but they changed it to Jesus or something. It's going to have a different focus. And part of the reason that happens, excuse me, is because of the way that the music is compiled, having to do with reflecting again back to the way that the temple worship was. The musical, the lines of music, like what someone would think of as a melody, okay, or what someone would think of as like a key in which something is sung. Those are referred to as different tones, and they provide the highest and the lowest of the notes that you're going to be going through, and those all are very emotionally evocative, and they're meant to build in a very particular way towards the experience of being in there, which is meant to be as if you are yourself facing as a part of heaven, really, and you're right there, how you would be worshiping in complete awe and often prostrative submission. So, like I said, there's kind of an arc to it where it rises towards a certain particular, I guess I could call it a crescendo, which would be in most services, especially particularly Divine Liturgy, that it would be when the Eucharist is offered, okay? Because that's the pinnacle of everything. In a contemporary, that's right, Bubula. In a contemporary service, it's usually the sermon that is the focal point, whereas in liturgical practices, it's actually your experience of, that mystery. So, excuse me. I heard, I think his name is Jack. I can't remember now because someone just waved their little hand in my face. Um, he was the guy that played Lucky. He became on like General Hospital. He became Orthodox, and he talked about that when he had gone, it had been very difficult for him, and that there was one point at which it clicked in his mind, and it happened to be during the cherubic hymn, which is sung very soon before you are going to be, receiving Eucharist when it's processed. And it's a very specific, I don't want to call it a break, but it is a set apart time, because one of the first lines in it is, "Now I lay aside all my cares." So it really is, just the world and all earthly things are really behind your mind. Nothing about that is forefront in your mind, and you just settle into this cloud of song, and demonstrative worship, basically, that is a devotion. And that there are phrases and stanzas said, and actually that is still retained usually. I've seen in different evangelical and Protestant ones where, for instance, they'll say the Lord's Prayer. And not only do we say that at one point, but we also say the Nicene Creed, and collectively we say together a prayer before we go to receive communion, or Eucharist, if you, sorry, everybody, I get so used to it from the Roman Catholic, sorry. I'm supposed to put a quarter in a jar, I'm sure. Anyways, so those are some of the similarities. If you've never gone, it kind of would be confusing and overwhelming, and you might want to have somebody who could walk you through it. Or I would not recommend you watching one, though, because you have to be there. It's kind of like looking at a live concert. It's like, oh yeah, that was cool for them, I guess. Yeah, because that might just sort of turn you off to it. But if you can have a little bit of a question and answer, or have somebody that you can refer to, if you have been a person who hasn't had any kind of liturgical background. If you were raised Jewish and you have, then you might, like me, just take to it like a duck to water. So it might not even be any kind of a, it'll be just what you were waiting for. That's for me. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and watch that video and see if there's anything else I wanted to add. I might actually go through some of the music. This is a big, thick, and actually when we're in liturgy, the notebooks are like this big, which I'm trying to show you at least 4 or 5 inches, whereas this is like 1.5 inches or 2 of papers. I have some that I'm able to use for myself on my own. The other one that I have tried to sort of capture an idea of what it's like is Praxis, which is a particular devotion to the Most Holy Theotokos. And that one has such a deep effect on me. I love that one, and unless you experience it and enjoy it, it's so hard to describe why that one is as incredible as it is. In fact, I even told someone who was raised Roman Catholic and then he became Orthodox as an adult. I told him that was like one of my most favorite services to be able to offer, and he was so confused. He's like, "What do you like about that?" He couldn't imagine what about it, musically in particular, I think was of interest to me. And there's such deep emotion, and it's hard to convey, but I'll do my best. So if you have any questions, if I can answer them, I'll try to. And I thank you for watching, and look forward to chatting again. Peace.